be doing is you have your two pieces. We sewed just those one sides, and I want you to open them up. Open them up so you see the pretty side. Ah, and they may not like open completely. That's okay. That's okay. I'll mark you. Thanks for putting it in the chat. So what we're going to be doing, again, we're making the pillow. And so we need to attach these four pieces together. We need to put them together. Just like we did yesterday. Yesterday we got the pretty side, the dark, vibrant side, and we had those touching. What we're going to do today is we open up these fabrics and we're going to have the pretty side to pretty side. Just like before. We're going to make those touch. And I don't know if you can kind of tell. My fabric is not exactly the same size. That's okay. No one's going to see this. It's all going to be hidden. What I care about is pretty side to pretty side. So open up the squares that we just sewed. And if you care, like, it's going to be one side to another side. So like, I don't know if you care, but you're just going to get pretty side and it's going to touch pretty side. You're going to hug. Aww, I miss hugging. One thing I was telling everyone, because now we're holding a few pieces of fabric, like yesterday it was just the two. If you get challenged, like let's say you're like, man, holding this is kind of tough. My fabrics aren't, they're uneven. It's hard to hold. There's a few different things you can do. I use my fingers. So like my pointer and my middle finger all like trap at the top, and then my thumb and my ring finger all trap the bottom, and then just sew with my other hand. That does get a little crazy after a while, like my fingers start to hurt. Don't forget that from the bag I gave at the beginning of the school year, I gave you one of these clips, or if you have one of these at home, these work too, to like clip the fabric so that way it doesn't move while you're working. Bobby pins are also a great thing to use. If you're like, I just need something to hold it together while I'm sewing, just put a bobby pin. Put a bobby pin so that way they're not like moving around on you. That works too. Whatever is the most convenient. That's what I always tell everybody. Okay, so two of our fabrics are little four pieces of fabric are all touching. Just like yesterday, I want to pick a corner. Now for me, you can tell my little like deer fabric is a little bit shorter than my the fabric below it. Whatever fabric is the shortest, that's the one I have to pay attention to because that's the one I need to make sure I don't get too close to the edge. I'm going to go a little bit in. Just like before, I don't want to get too close to those edges because it might rip off. I'm going to go a little bit in. And then I'll pull my needle all the way through till my fly knot catches. And we're doing exactly what we did yesterday. In, out, in, out. We're going straight up. Now, I'm going to have you guys stop when you get to here, like right before this little flap, because this is really where the challenge lies. That little hole that happens, the little tent thing. So I'm going to show you what to do right there. So I'm here at the back. Again, to make my stitch, I have to, wherever my thread's coming out, I have to go back in that same side. I'm just going straight up, in, out, in, out. out of there for me. Yeah. Again, my stitches aren't like teeny tiny, but they're not super big either. So I'm starting to get close to that weird little tab junction. I have like, and I also know I'm getting close because I see my old stitches from yesterday. So I kind of want to get, almost like finishing off this little corner with stitches. So I'm going to try to get at least one more stitch. Make sure I'm holding my fabric. There we go. It's all fun and games, so you get a knot in your thread. Okay. What's happening is we're doing the exact same thing. Like what we did right now, we're just going running stitch in, out, in, out, in, out, almost like a little back and forth seesaw. That's what's happening. What you need to know, because this is going to come up again, obviously on the other side, but when we start a major project, when you have this junction, you're doing the same thing. We're still doing a running stitch, but instead of just going straight down to the fabric right behind it, at the junction, you're going to go across. Because I want to jump to this new fabric. Like if you think about these guys, these little tabs, if those didn't exist, we would still just go in, out, and just keep going back and forth until we get to the top. But because they're kind of in our way, we're going to go in, but then go across. So that way I can get my needle on this side. So right now I'm here on like my little fabric, my little deer fabric. And I'm going to go in from this side because that's where my thread's coming out. In from this side, but across to my white little flower fabric now. You see my needle's doing kind of like a little diagonal because we don't want a hole. And that's what's going to happen if we try to keep just doing, like if you go in and then go around the tab and then go out, we want to go across. We don't want to make a hole. And then you'll pull it all the way through. And now, just like we've done before, we're going to start doing our running stitch and just keep going up all the way to the top. This just helps us get to the other side, going that diagonal way when you have your needle. So now keep going in, out. Remember, don't get too close to the edge. Oops. Nope. We went up just like yesterday. We're going to go back down, do our second row of stitches. When you get to that junction again, you're going to do the same thing just to the other side. So when we were going, we went diagonal this way. Now that we're coming back down, we're going to go diagonal the other way. Same thing, running stitch, running stitch. We got to jump to that other side. So we're going to go through, like I'm gonna go through my little stripe side and then go across to my little blue flower side. Make sure I don't stab myself as well. So I'm at this junction. I'm gonna go through this corner, but I want to go across to that other side, just like we did before. To do my second row running stitches, got to that kind of that corner where my stitches start to meet yesterday's stitches. And I just went across. I want to get to this other side of the fabric. And now I continue on like normal. Don't stab myself. There we go. Again, your stitches can be right on top of your old stitches, right in front of your stitches. Just make sure they're close. They're close and not close to the edge. The double stitching just provides assurance that it's not going to get too crazy. I had this fly knot, I can't even see. There. Ah. Okay. So again, whichever side my thread is coming out of, I want to find a stitch that's close. So obviously this one's like super close. I could still go to this one. Whichever one is just close to where my thread's coming out. I'm just going to slide my needle underneath, not through, just going, you just see it, just going underneath that stitch. It starts to make this loop. And that's really what I want. That's going to help me. I always put my fingers in the loop so I don't accidentally pull the needle too much. Then I'll turn my needle around. I'm just going to put it through the loop. And then that's when I pull. Now that's one. We want to do that twice. I'll go through the same one. And it's kind of hard to tell. Like I know it's nearby because we kind of already, like the knot is starting to happen. That's okay. Just, go underneath. And if you grab a little bit of fabric, you're like, oh no, that's okay too. You're making a knot. So it's okay if the little fabric gets stuck too. Again, I'm holding my finger inside so that way the loop doesn't get lost. Turn my needle around and go through the loop. And then pull, 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 pull. Cut off your thread and get some more thread. We're going to get started to kind of finish up this sewing part to make our little pillow. Because again, we're making a little pillow for our needle. It's going to be a pin cushion. It's not, a teeny tiny pillow for your fingers to fall asleep on. What's going to happen? What is it going to look like? Move this out of the way. It's something like this. So what we did right now is we sewed from the bottom to the top, and then we came back down and did that double stitch. Now, I had you do that because I just wanted to show you like the junction, like that weird part right there. I wanted you to make sure to know how to do that part. To finish, you don't have to stop. So basically what you're going to be working on is finishing up this L. Doesn't matter which side, like you can start in the corner, go across, then down, then turn around, go back up and across. It's up to you. Or you can start the bottom, go up and across, go back, across, and then back down. It doesn't really matter which corner you start with. You do have to have one end open. So your fabric is basically going to look like this. We're going to flip it. So these were the old stitches. These are the stitches that we did yesterday, right? And what we're doing today is we're doing this little like U-turn. And we're double stitching. What I wanted to tell you, because you guys can, get started right now. What I want to tell you is doing the arm's length of thread, you should have enough. You should have enough to be able to start, go across, go down, turn around, come back up, go across, and then finish. You should have enough because there's just a little bit of fabric. It's pretty small pieces. But if you don't, or like I want to show you what to look for, because if you start sewing and you get too close to the needle, like you're sewing, and now you reach the end of the needle, you won't be able to tie the knot. You won't be able to stop the thread, and it's just going to come undone and come unraveled. You'll have to do it over again. So what I like to tell everyone is when you're sewing, so keep sewing, like normal. What you want to look out for is from your needle, you want to have about a finger's length of thread left over. So as you're doing the running stitch, in, out, in, out, in, out, as you start to lose some of this fabric, because now it's being sewn inside your pillow, once you get to kind of about a finger's length of thread, stop. Don't go further. Tie a knot, go find a stitch, go underneath it, through the loop twice. Because what happens is if you keep sewing all the way to the end, and I know this sucks, especially when you're so close to being done, and you like, let's say you're sewing and you start running out of thread like right here, and you're like, man, I'm so close. It's up to you, pick your poison. I'm not there to help, because what's going to happen is if you don't have that finger's length of thread, you won't be able to do that loop. So you'll be sewing, and when you go underneath the stitch, you'll have this teeny tiny loop. Let's say it's this big. You won't be able to turn your needle around. If your loop is really, really tiny, if it's like this big, you won't be able to like turn the needle around to like get it to go through that loop. It's too tiny. You're like trying to like force your needle through. I've had students in the past where they just like cut their needle off, and then with those two little pieces of string, they tied a knot. You can try. I don't like doing that. My fingers are too big, even with nails. Like guys that don't have nails, it's just too hard. It's too hard to try to do a little knot with these little tiny pieces of string, especially if it's teeny tiny. I won't do it. I'd rather just stop and start again. So we have about 3 minutes before class is over. If you want to power through and just do this little L, you can. That junction's still gonna be the same. You're gonna go like across diagonal. I'm gonna stop here. So tomorrow I'm gonna finish very quickly. doing this L stitching because I want to give you guys enough time to put your stuff away before third period starts. So tomorrow I'm going to finish my little L to stitch. But if you want to, by all means, make sure you keep that last area open though, because we got to be able to turn it inside out. You want to have, think of like a finger puppet.